It comes from everywhere and anywhere. Patterns in concrete, just obviously a lot of nature stuff, different artists, you know, everywhere, yeah. Very difficult to answer that one because it just comes from it, yeah, everywhere and anywhere. So I think somebody said to me once, I'm a collector of ideas, so I just grab these things, store them somewhere, and then something might happen and I'll bring them out and then we'll see what happens. So yeah.
Architectural work was always my primary work, and so after doing mainly ecclesiastic work for about 10 years, I started doing large-scale domestic work, usually of a contemporary nature. And then another 10-year period I started diversifying and keeping the glass work going, but doing icon painting and some murals and botanical and animal illustration design.
I start with pictures. So there'll be certain styles that I'm really attracted to at a time. So an art period, I was heavily influenced by Bauhaus a few years ago, and like, yeah, sort of modernist design, really patterns. At the moment, I'm still figuring out what I'm really excited about design-wise. This is from a few years ago, so I probably wouldn't make something like this at the moment. But yeah, lots of pictures and art books. Yeah, so the design aspect before, like coming up with the idea, is by far the longest and most time-consuming part for me. Once it gets to the paper, like the drafting, drawing it out like to scale like this, and then making, it all happens really quickly for me, which is yeah, the really fun part, because it's when I get to create the design, I pull my hair out.
Yeah.
A lot.
I suppose it's like a visual language that's kind of developed over years, and it normally kind of will start from plant-based, more or less abstracted to depend on where it's going, I guess.
These are Banksia leaves, and I've made a panel up here that has a Banksia cone that's carved out of glass. And I've been working with the Banksia for quite a couple of years, and I like working with that because I think it's such a beautiful object in itself. The way it reproduces is after fire, the seed pods open up and then their seeds are released, so it can adapt to all these different environments, which I think is a really nice metaphor for how we need to live today.
Oh, I think they come from everywhere really. It depends on the project you're doing. If you're getting like a commission or something, then you kind of have a fairly predetermined theme. I guess all of these elements just come together, but essentially you don't really, you're just always working in a way. I guess I've studied for a long time, so you're always looking at things, thinking about things, wondering about techniques and processes and how you would develop them. And for example, blowing these voids up into bubbles. I hadn't really thought about that before, but it may be a good technique actually if I thought about it a bit more and worked that out in a hot shop, because you'd end up with forms that I haven't quite seen yet.
Ideas. That's a difficult one, because I think when you start looking at artists in the usual stained glass books, I remember my brother bought me a contemporary stained glass book, and that just really blew my mind, because I'd just been looking at traditional lead light, stained glass, you know, the old stuff. Then the new stuff came in with different techniques, and God, it was just unbelievable what was being done. Just different techniques, and that just blew my mind. So yeah, so you follow a few of the usual suspects for the artists, but then, you know, you might have an interest, like my interest is in Japanese art, so I would go to there and then try to interpret how can I use that, or how can I use what I do in glass with that element?
It's in me all the time, which is really, which is great, but sometimes it's really exhausting because you've got an idea, and by the time you come into the studio, you've got like 50 other ideas on where you can take that. So sometimes it's really hard for me to maintain my focus. I've got the drive is just there. I can't stop that. But my focus, I could be working on a piece and then something will come to me. Oh, and then you sort of like veer towards that without finishing something. Now I just want to take it to a different level, and where I can introduce my passion, my love for our nature. So that's where this is going. So I'm really happy with that.
Working with light, this is basically going to be a cloud form shape. So based on sort of like, I love clouds. I've been always into nature all my whole life and rock climbing, things like that. And I just love nature. I especially love stratocumulus. So sort of based on those really big fat stratocumulus shapes. And it's also just something that I visually like and something that expresses my my aesthetic. Yeah.
A lot of it is through the process of actually manipulating glass and blowing. You can design on paper, but I prefer to just make something and then work out how I can change that, what I've made, because just the process of making glass becomes part of the design process. The process of making new work and designing new work is definitely, I mean, it's hit and miss sometimes, but sometimes you'll come across something that you never thought of, because that's the way the glass naturally moves. So there's a lot of little technical things that allow you to do certain things, but a lot of it's just doing 90% traditional. And I mean, this optic mould is probably hundreds of years old, that technique. And apart from gas, when they probably had to have some poor slave pumping the furnace to keep it hot. But the tools we use are all pretty much hundreds of years old too, nothing's really changed. And you know, there's certain people come up with new techniques and suddenly everyone will try and use those techniques because it allows you to do something that has been impossible before.
A lot of my projects at the moment are commission based, which is awesome. Like, I'm very lucky about that. And because people know that I like to do Australian flora and fauna and talk about the Australian bush and our relationship with it, I get to even the commissions allow me to discover more stuff about nature and about the Australian bush. I'm trying to discover what my relationship is with the Australian landscape. I feel really connected to it, but I understand that I don't have like a really big family history with this land, and so through art is an amazing way to sort of discover what my relationship is with it. And I feel really lucky that that's what I get to think about on a day-to-day basis.